Hey everyone, it's the Trade Tea and welcome to today's video. It's the beginning of the year and like everyone else, I'm making investment plans for 2025. I've been in sort of a research mode lately, so I want to share some of my findings and theories. Just a quick note that I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. My videos are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Something I've been thinking about a lot is market sectors. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the stock market can be broken into sectors like materials, consumer staples, energy, healthcare, and real estate. Each year, sectors are ranked by how they perform against the total market. Here's a picture of each sector's performance in 2024 ranked against each other. As you can see, the top performing sectors in 2024 were communication services, financials, consumer discretionary, and technology, where only the first three outperformed the S&P 500. But before you go dump your whole life savings into the S&P Communication Services ETF, remember this: buy low, sell high. I'm not saying communication services are done, I'm just saying the market tends to ebb and flow, and then investing in poorly performing sectors could lead to bigger gains. A related demonstration of this was cited in Millionaire Teacher by Andrew Hallam. Hallam is notably against actively managed mutual funds, as any good millionaire should be, for their expense ratios and inability to consistently outperform the market. But there always seems to be actively managed mutual funds who go on streaks and outperform the market for a few years. However, he explains a phenomenon called the reversion to the mean. This means that when a fund has outperformed the S&P for 5-10 years, it'll likely return to the mean or worse. And sectors of the market are hardly actively managed mutual funds complete with men in suits, but hear me out. I think this analogy kind of works the other way too most of the time. If an entire sector, say consumer staples, drops to the absolute bottom for whatever reason, it's bound to come back. If it never recovers, we've got much bigger problems than can be resolved in this short video. So today, we are investigating the bottom four, the losers, the dunce caps, the worst performing sectors of 2024, and see if recovery could be in their sights for 2025. First, energy. What is the energy sector comprised of? Energy companies produce oil, natural gas, coal, renewable fuels, as well as electricity from clean energy sources including wind, solar, hydropower, geothermal, and nuclear power. The energy sector also includes things like oil and gas equipment and services like oil rigs, crews, and technology needed to drill. Let's start with why energy lagged in 2024. In the summer of 2024, expectations that the Federal Reserve would cut its key policy interest rate contributed to increased demand among investors for stocks with high growth potential, particularly those in the information technology and communication services sectors. The market rotation led to dampened enthusiasm for energy stocks, despite the sector's strong business fundamentals. The sector's lackluster performance comes after a minus 1.33% return in 2023. In many ways, this makes sense. The world is moving toward more renewable energy sources. By 2028, the International Energy Agency forecasts that renewables will account for 42% of global electricity generation, with wind and solar power making up to 25%. Remember when I said that solar and wind were included in the energy sector? It seems energy isn't doomed forever after all. Second, real estate. The real estate sector is primarily comprised of real estate investment trusts or REITs. These are companies that own, operate, or finance properties across a diverse mix of sectors, including offices and cell towers, apartment buildings, warehouses, retail and data centers, healthcare, and self-storage facilities. REITs lagged in the first half of 2024 as market gains were dominated by a narrow group of mega-cap stocks in the IT and communication services sectors, particularly companies deemed to be at the forefront of the AI race. But moving forward, it does look like there are some potential plays for the real estate sector. Think, what property segments are currently high in demand? Let's see. Senior housing, industrial REITs due to the rise in e-commerce, and data centers. The rise in expansion in AI technology has created a high demand for data centers. While the demand for data centers has skyrocketed, the supply of these crucial facilities has struggled to keep pace. One significant constraint is the availability of power. Data centers need a lot of power to operate. Another is the requirement for ready access to water, needed to keep servers from overheating. Finally, aesthetic and noise concerns mean that many people object to living near data centers, which has created obstacles on the ground to building new properties. These factors collectively have hindered the construction of new data centers. Coupled with the strong demand, they have created an environment in which data center REITs have been able to raise rents over time. We won't get into the industrial REITs or senior housing, but the line of thinking is the same. Need property, not enough property, property more expensive. There's an unmet demand here. Next, healthcare. Oh, the healthcare sector. Some love the biotech plays, some hate them. Say what you want about them, in the great US of A, you'll never be able to avoid them. And since I'm an insufferable nerd with 2 master's degrees, I personally like reading research studies on new medical gadgets. I get to feel like I'm living in a sci-fi movie, or at least in Francis Bacon's New Atlantis. So, why did the healthcare sector lag last year? Fidelity wrote on this issue. In the first half of 2024, healthcare stocks took a backseat to sectors like technology and communication services, where investors flocked to stocks that offer a potential play on the future of AI. Although returns for healthcare stocks began to improve in the second half of the year as the market rally broadened, some healthcare segments struggled as the sector continued to work through supply and demand imbalances left over from the pandemic. I'm going to add to this and just say that it's boring compared to AI. Medicine isn't that exciting. We've always had it, we'll always need it. Oh, to be bound by a flesh prison. Overall, biotech firms have been supported by a decrease in the cost of genome sequencing, the expansion of cell-based therapies, and an accelerated pace of drug discovery. Just this year, biotech firms have been reporting encouraging clinical data in blockbuster categories that could move the needle for industry sales. In particular, so-called specialty drugs, which are typically new drug categories that start out at higher price points, have seen sales expanding by 15 to 17% a year. Specialty drugs, just to clarify, are high cost, high complexity, or high touch. These drugs are often biologics, meaning they're derived from living cells. They're used to treat complex, rare, or chronic conditions like cancer, arthritis, HIV, and hepatitis. So why now? While healthcare lagged in 2024, low current valuations could provide an opportunity for investors who want exposure to a sector with long-term drivers, chief among them an aging U.S. population increasingly in need of medical care. And even without the aging U.S. population, U.S. citizens aren't exactly known for being the healthiest. The sector also supports improving business fundamentals like cash flows and vast, diverse number of industries with a combination of defensive and growth characteristics that may be attractive in a variety of scenarios. Finally, materials. The materials sector encompasses industries such as chemical producers, including makers of fertilizers and industrial chemicals, metals producers, including gold and copper miners and steel makers, makers of construction materials such as cement, bricks, glass, and gravel, and producers of wood-based goods, such as lumber and paper packaging. These industries operate in global markets, and demand for these goods tends to be highly dependent on the state of the global economy. For example, construction materials are likely to be in higher demand when the economy is booming. For that reason, materials are inherently a cyclical sector, rising and falling with the strength of demand for these goods in the US and globally. Investors can't predict or control how the US economy will perform in the short term, or how foreign trade policy will unfold. But fortunately, these issues may have little impact on the long-term supply and demand dynamics at play in the materials sector. My thesis for materials is that, well, we need them to do anything. We need copper for power transmission, construction, and electronics. We need steel to build automobiles and our infrastructure. We need silver for solar panels, semiconductors, and circuit boards. Whatever we do, we just can't seem to get away from materials very long. If you're anything like me right now, you're connecting the dots between all 4 of these lagging sectors, trying to see how they might work together as AI and renewable energy grow over the next decade. And if you're not, you're looking over at me like I'm John Nash from A Beautiful Mind. And I understand. Godspeed. In any case, I hope this was a fun deep dive for you to accompany me on. If you enjoyed this video at all, please like this video and consider subscribing. In my next video, I'll point out some value stocks in each of these sectors and how I found them. But beware, I'll be using some fancy stock jargon, so if you aren't familiar, you might want to watch this video first. Until next time, happy investing!